Hello, hello. We'll get started in just a few minutes as we get a few minutes past the hour. But welcome, welcome. Let me switch that off there. And happy, almost basically end of the year. We got what, 3 more days? If you count today, 1, 2, 3. I guess if you count today, 4 more days of 2023. Crazy, at least to me, how quickly this feels like it has gone by. Um, Although there's research behind that, that shows the older you get, the shorter the years feel because they are a smaller and smaller percentage of how many years you have lived. So for my daughter, who is 2.5, I imagine this was also still feeling like a pretty long year. That's, essentially almost double her lifespan of 2023. But I know for me, certainly felt like it went by pretty quickly. So like I said, welcome to the people joining. We'll get started in just a couple of minutes as we allow people to come in. But while we are waiting, go ahead and answer our kind of welcome question. As you come in, you can share in the chat. Do you make New Year's resolutions? Kind of yes or no. And then do you tend to stick to them? Yes or no. So you certainly feel free to drop that in the chat, your answer to those, that's that question. For myself, I absolutely make New Year's resolutions pretty much every year. Whether I stick to them kind of depends on the year. I used to be much more diligent about it. I would say even as of 5 years ago, I was diligently make 10 goals every single year, and each one had kind of, I called them OKRs. I went through the process of OKRs, objectives and key results coming from Google has that kind of style or format is where I learned it. And I would do that every single year and track it against every single month. And I'm going to attempt to get back to it this year because it is particularly helpful. But the last 5 years, I've done that at the beginning of the year and then kind of forgotten about it. In fact, I don't know if I could tell you what my 10 attempted goals were last year. So we're going to talk about why this normal process doesn't work as we come in. But I see, so Bianca says, yes, mostly follow and stick to those resolutions. And Kimberly says, looking for an alternative word since, resolution. And that's one of the things that we're going to talk about today in terms of a detox from this concept of resolutions is that in some ways it's almost too, I don't know if lofty is the right idea, but almost intimidating, I think, in some ways around it because and sometimes it's a word or a mindset change that changes our success rate. To Kimberly's point is, hey, haven't always done it. Corinda says, yes, make them. No, don't stick to them. Gina, don't make any, but reflect on things, which I like, right? Reflection, I think, is a key part of the process to any type of ongoing growth and improvement. Dave says a dream list. I like that and refreshing it. Very cool. Dream list or goal list in some ways. Lots of different names for these ideas. Yeah, and Corinne is like, I like the name of a dream list. And I know some people make their bucket list. I know some people make their kind of to-do list, their don't list as well. So there's a whole, aspect or variety of things that can happen. But that's essentially what we're going to be talking about today. As we're a few minutes past the hour, we'll go ahead and jump in and probably have a few people joining us as we come in. But overall, welcome to the December happy hour from Humor That Works. We're excited to have you here. If you are new to the happy hours, essentially what we do is roughly once a month, we get together to explore a topic a little bit as a deeper dive into something related to how we create more enjoyable and life experiences. And this is essentially the opportunity for us to just dive deeper into some type of topic. So in the past, we've talked about how you can use AI to be more creative and use it as a creative partner. We've talked about how to start your day off right so that you have the right kind of mentality and energy going forward. We've talked about how to end your day, work day, so that you can kind of separate yourself from any stress or anxiety that you're feeling about work and, not carry that into your personal life, etc. All of those are available as replays in the Humor That Works community. So you can check those out if those topics sound interesting to you. But today, we are talking specifically about resolutions and how we can start the new year afresh. And in some ways, how we can detox from this kind of mindset around resolutions. And with that, I want to kind of just explore, like, one of the things that we've talked about, a number of people, mention is like, hey, have something about resolutions, whether it's setting specific resolutions, or we call it a dream list or a to-do list, a living list. I like Giggles has shared a living list as opposed to, say, a bucket list is a great idea. But we have these things that we want to hopefully achieve, but that's not always something that we end up accomplishing. And so what is that disconnect between what we want to try to do and what we are actually able to do? It's a concept that I'm exploring a lot through a book right now that I'm reading called 4,000 Weeks. It's a great book. The idea is that the average lifespan, average human gets about 4,000 weeks. And so the author is exploring, what do we do with those 4,000 weeks? And it's kind of an anti-time management book, where it starts with a very basic premise to say that we will never be able to accomplish all of the things that we want to accomplish. And we can either be upset about that, we can fight against it in terms of trying to be as efficient as possible and learn how to multitask and do all these X, Y, and Z productivity hacks, or we can kind of come to grips and recognition that we're not going to be able to do everything. So how do we take a little bit of a step back and get comfortable with not being productive all the time? This kind of anti-hustle culture in some ways that we're starting to experience. And resolutions can kind of fall a little bit into that. How do we balance being strategic and thinking about what we want to achieve while also not beating ourselves up if we are not able to accomplish it? And how do we detox from that process? So that's what we're going to explore. But it is a little bit of a humor course, or we have a humor background as well. So thought I'd start with a short clip to kind of demonstrate the idea of resolutions in perhaps a humorous way. So this is a clip from the TV show Friends, and let me know if you're not able to hear this.
I am going to be happy this year. I am going to make myself happy.
Do you want us to leave the room, or?
Every day, I am going to do one thing I have never done before. That, my friends, is my New Year's resolution.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah?
Mine is to pilot a commercial jet.
That's a good one, too, Phoebes. Now all you have to do is find a plane load of people whose resolution is to plummet to their deaths.
Maybe your resolution should be not to make fun of your friends, especially the ones who may soon be flying you to Europe for free on their own plane.
She has a better chance of sprouting wings and flying up your nose than you do of not making fun of us.
In fact, I'll bet you $50 you can't go the whole year without making fun of us. You know what? Better yet, a week.
I'll take that bet, my friend. And you know what? Paying me the $50 can be the new thing you do that day. And it starts right now.
All right, my New Year's resolution is to learn how to play guitar.
Oh. Really? How come?
Well, you know those special skills I have listed on my resume? Well, I would love it if one of those was true.
You want me to teach you?
All right, we'll stop right there. Great little clip, but idea that, kind of concept a little bit, hey, we all try different New Year's resolutions, and sometimes other people have more resolutions for us than we kind of have of ourselves, right? You can see in that clip of kind of like sharing, your resolution should be this, your resolution should be that. Not a bad way to go about things. I think that's kind of an interesting, almost, maybe it's tied, almost connected to the Festivus kind of airing of grievances. You can kind of connect to resolutions in some ways as well. But it's interesting, if you look at that clip, some of those resolutions are ones that we may all want to achieve. So Ross wants to be happier, right? I just want to spend more time being happier. That's a wonderful goal or thing to try to achieve. Other people, for Chandler's, say, hey, be nicer, be less aggressive in the humor that you use. And of course, Phoebe wants to fly a commercial jet. So there's a whole wide variety of some of them being realistic and some of them being not. So what is the actual value in making resolutions? And we've talked about already a little bit the difficulty of them, because in a 2016 study, they found that 41% of Americans make a resolution. This percentage tends to be lower and other places around the world. There's something about Americans, I guess US Americans, that really like to make resolutions, but this is a higher percentage. 41% will make a resolution on average each year. And only 9% of them in this particular 2016 study complete it for the entire year. The average drop-off from a Forbes study found that most people will maintain their resolution an average of 3.74 months. So you get 4 months into the year, and the vast majority of people have already stopped doing their resolution. So why even make them? Well, in a different study, they found for people who had a very specific intention of they had a challenge or a problem that they wanted to solve, they found that 46% of people who made a resolution actually achieved their goal of overcoming that challenge or changing that problem, which isn't that much, right? It's still less than half. However, only 4% of the people who didn't make a resolution at all were successful. So what does that mean? Well, yes, does making a resolution guarantee that you are going to be successful in whatever thing you are resoluting to do? I guess no, but it is a step towards that process, especially towards the end of the year. So I think there still is value in taking a moment to take stock, to think about ultimately what would you like to achieve, what is the bigger picture, and then ultimately how do we get there. So to kind of reflect on that, I want to ask you a question to share in the chat. What was your proudest moment of 2023? Okay, think about that for a moment. What was your proudest moment? In this case, it's the first thing that comes to mind. Don't worry, I'm not going to quiz you. There's no way for us to know if it was truly your proudest moment in terms of if you were to, measure the amount of emotion in your body to know that this was the one absolute peak. Although that would be a great, a feature of a Fitbit, I think, is if you could say like proudest moment was this day, right? But if you think about the first thing that comes to mind, what was that moment? So I love that Bianca got married. That's a wonderful, proud moment to have. For Palmo, staying married, also a very proud moment to get there. My teenager asked to help for trans tape. That's wonderful, right? A feeling of warmth and connection. The fact that there was some trust there, some family building, a wonderful family weekend. Ooh, that was well organized. I like that as an additional kind of caveat there to that one. Is like, yeah, sometimes we go on vacation and it's a little bit of chaos, but if it's a well-organized one and things go smoothly and it's wonderful, fantastic, spending more time with the daughter, being in the MC at church function, you got teens to laugh and participate. A round of applause to you, Corinda, on that one. I will tell you that teens are, to me, one of the hardest audiences to kind of get and understand. So that's a beautiful thing to be proud of. For me, I think my proudest moment was I did a stand-up engagement at NSA. So the National Speakers Association is a group of other professional speakers. We get together oftentimes once a year. We had a comedy night as part of that. I went on stage, did stand-up. And while I was on stage, my 2-year-old daughter walked up on stage as well. So I brought her up and incorporated her into the act. And multiple people told me afterwards that she completely stole the show. But it was a proud moment of being in front of my peers, doing some funny comedy, and then also my daughter being there and soaking in and loving and all of the adoring attention. So who knows, maybe she'll be a comedian or speaker at some point in the future. Although she's only 2, so she can be whatever it is that she wants. So the reason why I asked this question, though, is was this moment at all connected to any resolutions that you made in January of 2023? Maybe, maybe not. For me, it was not. I did say, yes, I absolutely want to perform, but I did not have as part of my resolution to perform on stage with my daughter. It's a fun one to do, but it wasn't a goal. It wasn't a thing that I was thinking about. And so one, for us to kind of take a step back and be like, hey, it is okay for us to vary and deviate from any resolutions that we make. That just because we assign something at the beginning of the year doesn't guarantee that it's going to happen. And it also doesn't mean that we're not going to have proud moments, that we're not going to have things that we are successful in, that we're not going to have accomplishments or things that make us happy or smile. So for some of us, it was connected. For some of us, it wasn't. But the whole idea is to say, okay, yes, resolutions are a good idea, or goal setting or dream listing or creating a living list, whatever you want to call it, is a good strategy to have. But it doesn't guarantee success, nor does it prevent us from having other kind of unexpected moments of levity, of joy, of accomplishment as well. So we need to put that kind of into perspective. So now setting that and evolving and thinking about what we want to achieve in 2024, what is it that you want to do? What is one thing that you're hoping to potentially accomplish or to achieve or attain in 2024? And go ahead and drop it into the chat. This is where we started. Maybe you've already started to think about this. I know Bianca has probably already started her list and is whittling down, etc. I know I've started the initial brainstorm of some ideas. Some people are like, I barely even realize that it's, December 28th. Give me more time. But go ahead and share or think about one thing you would like to achieve in 2024. For myself, one of the things that we're going to be working on Humor That Works more is more long form content videos. So think, YouTube videos of 10 to 20 minutes long, where they're a little bit more polished so that we can access or get this insight out to more people. Because we've been on this evolution at Humor That Works. When we first started, primarily was focused on in-person workshops and deliveries. And then the pandemic happened and a lot of that became virtual. Within the community, we're trying to make that more accessible to more people, right? Virtual, you can join from anywhere in the world. Next, we want to also create some of this content that is not behind any type of membership wall, that is more open, that people can kind of find via search, etc., so that we can get these content and ideas out to more people and hopefully have a positive impact in the world. That is the goal. Now, that is a very broad goal and not specific enough, but that is a starting point. So revamping a husband's tour business. I like that, right? So a business related kind of specific goal or thing that you want to achieve. It could be, in terms of resolutions that are most popular statistically or from studies, losing weight is a big popular one, eating healthier, exercising more, quitting smoking or quitting drinking, quitting certain bad habits are common goals or things that people want to achieve. So it is valuable to think about these high level goals. But why do they fail, right? If only 9% of the people that are going to say, hey, I want to do this thing, actually achieve it at the end of the year, what's going to potentially prevent you from recognizing, privilege more, or starting discussions around retirement, or creating more, greater simplicity? What's going to prevent you from doing that? I'm curious, what do you think? What do you think stops people from accomplishing their goals and or achieving their resolutions? Any thoughts in the comments? What prevents you from doing it? Whether it's you or other people. We might say, let's see other people. Yeah, so Corinne says, you lose focus, right? You realize that there's this goal that you want to do, but then suddenly 1,000 other things pop up in the day. There's roadblocks that exist, a thing that you want to try to accomplish, but maybe you can't do it in the country that you're in, or you can't do it at that particular time because of whatever reason comes up. You might have a fear around that particular thing to say, oh, can I even actually accomplish this thing, right? A little bit of self-doubt of like, okay, yeah, one of my goals, I think, coming up this year is I do want to do stand-up comedy in Spanish, spending a lot of time in Panama based on my wife's work. And so we spend a lot of time here. I'm working on my Spanish. It's still not great, but my thought is like, okay, if I can do stand-up in Spanish, that will prove to me at least that I've at least tried it. And it might go horribly wrong, but there's that fear that I'm not going to be successful at it. And attention, right? That loss of focus is to say, okay, there's 1,000 other things that come up as well. It's not on top of mind. It's an old habit that we have to break, or being intimidated by the sheer size of the option, right? These are all absolutely aspects of why they fail. Looking at the research, a number of the big reasons why they fail is one, is people have, at least in the biggest mistake we see in a lot of our one-on-one coaching with people and the goals that they're trying to achieve, is that they have this all or nothing mentality. Do you all know what I mean kind of by that, of all or nothing, where it's kind of like, okay, if my goal is, they set a pretty strict kind of goal or idea, and there's like, okay, I want to eat, 0 sugar. And then they eat something, they eat like a piece of bread, and they realize, oh, there's added sugar into it. And rather than saying, oh, that was a mistake, let me carry on, they're like, well, I've already eaten this piece of bread. I might as well go and eat an entire pint of ice cream, followed by a bunch of Skittles, and just pour sugar directly into my mouth, right? It's kind of this like, well, I messed up this one tiny thing, so I'm done. As Kathy kind of shared in the chat, it's either I'm either perfect or awful, right? I've already made this mess up, so I'm going to like mess up completely. And that happens a lot also when it comes to things like streaks of like, okay, I'm going to go X number of days of reading every single day. So I open my Kindle and I get to 3-4 days, and then I have a busy day of day number 5 and I stop reading. So like, well, okay, I'm already done with my resolution for the year after 5 days. Well, we need to get over that all or nothing mentality. We need to recognize, okay, hey, it's not about perfection, right? It is about persistence. It is about continuing to do this thing over and over and over again. And it's about getting back up after we have fallen off. So that's the first mistake that often happens. The second mistake is a lot of times people make too many resolutions, or they take too big of a resolution, right? People think of like, okay, it's January 1st. It's going to be my start of the year. So I am going to start working out every single day. I am going to eat healthy. I'm going to abstain from alcohol, sugar, never going to go on TikTok again. I'm going to basically become this perfect person that I have never actually once been in my entire life, but starting January 1st, I'm going to do it all once perfectly as we go. Like, it would be wonderful if we could just had a hard reset in our head like that, but it's probably not very realistic. The other challenge, or people say like, okay, I'm going to go from 0 to 1. I'm going to go from never writing much at all each day to I'm going to publish a 60,000 word nonfiction book in the course of a year, and it's going to go on to be a national bestseller. And it's like, probably unrealistic that's going to happen if you've never written, kind of formally a day in your life, right? So we need to start with, yes, we can have big audacious goals, but we need to start with smaller, resolutions or ideas to get there. Because I'm curious, realistically, how many goals do you think you can work on at once, or how many, maybe new habits or things can you change? Realistic, how many things? Put in the chat. How many think you can do at one time? That will give people a moment to think about it. How many things can you possibly change or work on it? 0.5. I love it. 1.2. Yeah. Jesus says it depends on how expanded they are. Others say 3, just a few. The reality is yes, just a few. There is no hard, fast research on this. James Clear has a great post about this when it comes to atomic habits, etc. And he says the closest Venmo kind of look to find about it is that it is probably 2 to 3 of new things that you can work on. A lot of people suggest kind of like one thing that you really, really focus on. Other people, go a little bit broader than that. But in terms of brand new things, yes, it's probably 2 to 3 things. For myself, I try to pick 2 newer things that I may try to work on in a year, plus 3 things that I want to maintain. Something that I've maybe already started to develop a little bit of a habit for, haven't necessarily got great at it, but to say like, okay, this is a thing I want to be more conscientious of, but it's not brand new to me. And then 2 things that might be more new to me, right? So it's not saying, okay, it's all or nothing. It's this ability to kind of be able to manage stuff. But if there's one thing that's really important, if you had to pick one, then it's like, okay, make sure that's the priority in terms of focus. The next mistake people make is that they're not very specific. They might say things like, I want to eat healthy this year, or I want to be happier. Or we even saw the example. Yes, I want to create greater simplicity. These are all wonderful things to try to achieve. They're just not necessarily specific in terms of can you follow them. So a lot of people follow the SMART framework. Is it specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time bound? So you can kind of use that as a strategy to say, okay, each one of my goals should follow the SMART framework. The way that I like to frame it is, can you have an easy yes or no answer to whether you achieved it? Right? So something like, oh, I want to be happier. Was I happier this year? Can kind of be hard to say yes or no. Or I want to eat healthier. Yes or no. That's hard to decide. But instead of eat healthier, if you said, oh, I want to eat 5 servings of vegetables every single day, well, each day you would be able to say, yes, I ate the 5, or no, I didn't. Right? So having a binary yes or no that you can answer to a question is a way I like to kind of refine, is it simple enough? So I'm curious, we think about some of these activities, just kind of get our brain warming, thinking about this process of how to make things more specific. If you were to have the broad goal of, say, lose weight, how could you make that more specific? Any thoughts of how to put that either in like the SMART framework? Share in the chat of how would you make that more of a specific goal to achieve rather than just lose weight. What's a way to make that more specific? Right, just so we practice that ability to go from general to specific. Any thoughts? How do you make lose weight a more specific goal or thing to achieve? Yeah, exactly. So we're saying, yeah, you might break that down into exercise and diet. And so you might say, okay, how many times are you going to exercise per week? Or even how long are you going to exercise in that period of time? If you're going to eat, how often are you going to eat? Or in what quantities? What are you going to do calorie counting? Are you going to do time bound? Are you going to do like, okay, I'm going to achieve this through not eating on, every 12 hours, like doing a fasting schedule, etc. You say, okay, yeah, I'm going to break it down into smaller goals. I'm not going to work on, I'm going to work on 1 kilo in a year, like each month, to say, okay, I can check, have I lost 1 kilo or not, right? So it's just an idea of different ways to break it down to specify it. A lot of times this involves numbers. Hopefully you are not as scared of numbers. Numbers can actually help in terms of specifying, quantifying, helping you say kind of yes or no to something. So hopefully for the non-math people, you're not intimidated by numbers. I like to joke that I used to be afraid of numbers like the square root of 2, which is irrational, I know, but yeah, just a terrible joke that we throw in there as well. Right, so this is a simple example of, okay, how do I add some numbers into this idea? How do I make sure that it's a binary yes or no that I can achieve this particular goal? Mistake number 4 that people make is that they don't track progress on their resolutions. Right, and there's a lot of value into tracking progress. This is from a blog post that we wrote previously about tracking progress. The value I get from me kind of tracking my goals is 1, so that I can actually review them. 2, it is so that I can make adjustments. 3, so that I feel good about my progress. And then the biggest orange one is so that I remember actually what my resolutions were in the first place. Right, sometimes it is you just forget, like, oh yeah, that was the thing that I wanted to achieve. And so tracking our goals helps us to maintain focus, where even if we lose an entire month of like, oh, I didn't actually work on this thing for an entire month, it can be like, okay, well, now I have the next month to start again, right? It's just that ability to help us get back on the horse. It also allows us to make adjustments. We can say what's working, what's not working. How can we tweak? How can we refine? Recently, I was doing I did a Google search on, like funny comedy about resolutions. And one of the things that came up was a woman who went viral on TikTok and Instagram, et cetera, because she reviewed in I think November of 2020, she reviewed her 2020 goals going into the year 2020. And it was just one of those kind of so funny, but also so sad, you want to cry type thing, because all of her resolutions pre-pandemic were things like, be more social and go out with more people, travel more, lose weight, etc. And those all things that were very hard, if not impossible to do during the pandemic. And so obviously things are going to change. The year is going to evolve. You don't know exactly what's going to happen in life. But by simply reviewing your goals, it allows you to make adjustments. You can say, okay, maybe my goal was to read a new book every single week, but then, hey, I got really sick, or I had to do this thing instead. You might adjust that to say, okay, my goal is to read 50 books in a year total. And so maybe I just need to make up a week here or there, et cetera, right? So you can make adjustments as you go through, as long as you are reviewing. So what can you do, right? How can you avoid these challenges? How can you be more likely to succeed with your resolutions or dream list, living list, et cetera? Any thoughts, any strategies you have in your own head of how you can, tip the scales in your favor a little bit to be more effective at achieving your goals or desires, your resolutions? Anything come to mind, or any strategies that work for you, or any strategies that you've read about and you're wondering, hey, can it actually help? So Kelly says, yeah, you can hire a coach. Absolutely. A coach can be incredibly valuable for a thing that you're working on doing. One, it's built-in accountability. The coaches that I work with, some of the biggest things that they provide isn't necessarily insight on a specific thing, but the fact that I'm getting ready to go into one of my coaching calls, coaching meeting with my coach, and I have to be like, oh yeah, I said I was going to do this thing last time. I better do it real quick. And is that as good as kind of taking the entire month to do something leading up to before that conversation? No, but is it better than not doing it at all? Absolutely. So any type of accountability. So coaching can provide that with you. Getting together with a group, sharing your ideas with other people, finding an accountability partner is another way to achieve that. Other advantages of a coach is they can help you, avoid the roadblocks we talked about as one of the barriers to kind of achieving that. So I think that's a great idea. So coach is a good one. Tracking it, Bianca says, big one we've talked a bit about. making them visible for sure, writing them on a post-it note and putting them somewhere, putting it up on your mirror. One thing that you can do that I've done in the past is make it your desktop background, so that every time you kind of opening up your computer and your desktop, you see it and you're like, oh yeah, that's the thing that I want to do. And you can either have it as a text goal. What I often do is I have a picture of the thing that I'm working towards. Whatever my number one goal is, it's a picture or image, so it's a visual response to it. An underrated one that I used to use in the past, haven't done as much anymore because of password savers, is at P&G. When I was still working at P&G and I had to change my password every 90 days or whatever, I would make my passwords things that I wanted to achieve. So I take like a long sentence of like something like improve my swimming skills, something like that. And then I would just take the first letter of each thing, like IMSS, and then add a year or something to it. And that would become my password. Because that was the thing that I had to type in every single day. And it was a constant, every single time I had to type in my password, it was a reminder of something that I wanted to achieve or do. So you can do that with passwords as well, as long as you make them kind of strong enough as part of it. So making it visible in some ways. Put it in writing, absolutely, doing the SMART goal, writing it down, putting it on your calendar. I really like that. That's a great kind of reminder, Kathy, is to celebrate the wins, because so often we're ready to move on to the next thing. So if you celebrate the wins, you get not only you get the benefit of accomplishing the thing that you want to do, but you get the kind of nice dopamine hit of like, hey, I get this reward as well. So I do that with speaking. Yeah, and then also mental resilience around the ability not to be okay when you mess things up. For me, the thing that has worked over the years, and one of the things that we've worked with some one-on-one clients with that has seemed to work with them, is to think much less about resolutions and think much more about habits. Like, yes, absolutely think about what the large goal or the thing is that you want to achieve. But rather than leaving it at that, think about what would the daily habits need to be for you to achieve that thing. So rather than it being a binary yes or no, did I complete this at the end of the year? It becomes a binary yes or no, did I do this at the end of the day? And that gives you a couple of advantages in a number of ways. One, as we've talked about, it helps to break down big, audacious goals into something that's much more actionable and manageable. It's also much easier to track. You get more frequency in terms of which you can kind of track that thing that you try to do. And it's now a daily thing that you're accomplishing, or if not every single day, but every other day or every week at least, right? It's a much more consistent process where even if you mess up one day, that's great. There's 364 other days. Even if you mess up half of the days, that's still 180 days that you've made progress towards this thing that you want to try to achieve, this thing that you want to do. So how do you do that? Well, think about a goal that we've talked about before of like, say, eat healthier. Or even something like lose 5 pounds. As we've kind of talked about the strategies, you could say, okay, on a daily basis, I want to eat at least 5 servings of vegetables, or I want to eat less than 25 grams of added sugar. Or you could do 2 habits. You could say, I want to eat less than 25 grams of sugar, added sugar, and I want to do at least 20 minutes of cardio. You add those 2 things. Those are 2 things that you can easily say yes or no, did you do 2 each day? And I bet if you do those things over the course of the year, you're probably going to, quote unquote, be healthier. You're probably going to lose a little bit of weight or maybe put on a little bit of muscle, depending on what your particular goal is. So how do you turn big resolutions into daily habits? And that's a thing that we have been doing, and I have been doing for the last 10 years, although I admit the last 2 years, once my daughter was born, I got a little bit away from it. So this is my renewed commitment to this year of what I call the 5 daily habits. So my goal is each year, at the beginning of the year, I think of what are 5 things that if I did each day or almost each day would make for a good productive year. And I usually pick something from one of each area of my life. Those key areas being something related to business or work. So something related to humor that works. So one habit related to that, something related to relationships. So in the past, this has been relationships kind of with my friends or peers. This year, in the past years, it's been kind of with my wife and my daughter. So family relationships. Something related to my diet. The reason why I've brought up the example of eating 5 servings of fruits and vegetables every single year is when I first started doing this back in 2010, I had to make it a daily habit to eat 2 servings of fruits or vegetables And I had to track it every single day because I didn't eat hardly any of it. I was constantly eating processed food and chocolate, etc. And so you got to start with where you're at. So I had a goal of eating just 2. And I would track every single day if I did that, and I didn't do it every single day. And then it became 3, and then it became 4, and then it became 5. So it became a small habit that I needed to incorporate it, right? So I do something related to my diet. So I'm continually improving it because as of 10 years ago, and certainly before my wife and I met, I ate exclusively like an 8-year-old. I started the day with Pop-Tarts. I had, chicken nuggets for lunch. I would have, McDonald's or fast food or something like that for dinner. I remember thinking I had this incredible innovation when I would took dinosaur chicken nuggets and eat it as part of a salad because it made the salad better, slightly more manageable. That was like, whoa, I'm eating healthy. Wild world that we once lived in. But again, you start with where you're at. So diet is a big one, exercise or some type of movement, because I know that has a big impact on my overall happiness and mood. And then something related to play or fun or growth, something that makes things a little bit more, life a little bit more. So I do something those 5: business, relationships, diet, exercise, and fun, play, or growth. And I pick one thing from each one of those things. Why 5? There's a little bit of research around that. I remember hearing a speaker at P&G once talk about that. The average person can at most kind of dedicate, time to 5 roles in their life at one time. So you can be you could be a professional or a worker for a specific thing. You can be a boss. You can be a direct report. You can be a parent and a spouse. But you can't necessarily then also add, avid golfer and also, present family member and, all these different things. Once you get past 5, there's 5 that you can maybe focus on more dedicated in a period of time. The other ones then start to lose a little bit. So I thought, okay, let me pick 5 things. And then the other reason why I pick 5 is just because it's simply easy enough for me. I associate each one with one on my fingers. And then I look at, like, when I need to remember, what are my goals this year? What are my habits that I'm thinking about? I'll look at my hands oftentimes and then be able to go through the list of 5. So that's why I limit it to 5. I know some people go more than that. Some people go less, but my goal is 5 kind of things. Now, my list of 5 things this year is just to kind of give you a strategy, because we're going to give you a little bit of time to think about what yours would be if you wanted to do this. My 5 are, so business related. I want to write for at least 20 minutes. So I want to go back to making daily entries into my humor notebook because writing helps me to think through my thoughts in reality, like helps me actually understand what I'm thinking about, what I'm going through. It also oftentimes turns into content. I want to make my daughter laugh every single day. That's some way of connecting to, us having a stronger relationship. Obviously, I'm going to spend time with her, but even on the days that I travel and away, I want to make sure that I'm on a video call or something with her, that we have a chance to bond over a little bit of a smile or laugh or silliness. Number 3 is eat less than 25 grams of added sugar. That is because I recently got some blood work back and I am not quite at pre-diabetic sugar levels, but I'm very close. My doctor said if I keep going in this direction, my blood is going to basically turn into Kool-Aid. And so I'm like, okay, I need to cut that down. And that's a measurable thing for me to follow. Do 20 minutes of exercise. This has been one that I've had for years, but it's just a reminder as a way to get some at least intense exercise. And then 5 is to study Spanish for at least 15 minutes because that goal goes towards my goal of 1, being able to perform in stand-up. And 2, if my wife and I do eventually leave Panama, I would regret, I think, in the future saying, okay, I've lived in a Spanish-speaking country for a good portion of each year over the past X number of years, and I didn't get much better at Spanish. So that is my goal of 5. So we'll give you a few minutes now to think about, okay, if you had 5 habits or 3 or whatever, thinking about the goals that you set of what you want to achieve in 2024, use that as kind of a benchmark to say, okay, if I want to say make things simpler, right? That was one of the examples. How could you turn that into a daily habit? Is it to remove, one piece of clutter from your life each day? Or is it to do something else? Now, one big tip or key for this that I want to make sure is really, really clear is that the goal for the year is not necessarily to do all 5 things every single day. Right? This is not an all or nothing kind of mentality type thing where you say, okay, well, I've got to pick 5 things that I can absolutely do. And if on the first day you only do 4 out of the 5, that you're like suddenly a failure. No, the whole intent of this, at least particular process that we've set up, is that even doing one of these habits in a day is incredibly valuable. But sometimes life gets tough. And so maybe you can't write every single day, but maybe on the first day I can write for 20 minutes. And then on the second day, okay, maybe I can't write for 20 minutes, but I can make sure that I study Spanish for, at least 15 minutes, right? It gives you some options of how you at least making progress towards your larger goal and some steps along the way. What I shoot for is for 3 of the 5 habits in each day. Doesn't matter which 3, but I'm like, okay, let me try to get 3 habits each day. If I can do that, I consider it a good day. If I do 4 out of the 5 habits, I consider it a great day. And if I do 5 out of the 5 habits, I consider it an excellent day. And this is a thing that I actually, track. Historically, I've tracked each day to kind of say, how many did I do? Okay, yes or no. What am I tracking at? Then at the end of each month, I've gone back and reviewed, okay, how many times did I write? How many times did I make my daughter laugh? Are these still the goals that I want? Can I adjust them? So I tell that to you now because as you're thinking about the 5, think about something that you want to do on a pretty consistent basis. But if you're like, I wouldn't necessarily want to do it every single day, not all 360, 2024 is a leap year, yeah? Not every 366 days of the year, but if I did it for 200 days of the year, it'd have a big impact. Okay, that can go on the list, all right? The other thing about what goes on the list is it shouldn't be something that you kind of do pretty much already anyway. So one of the habits that I've dropped from this is eat, 5 servings of vegetables because now I'm much better and much more conscious about eating. I do that kind of naturally. So I don't need to track that as a yes or no because it happens most days anyway. So I need something that this is going to add a little bit of additional motivation for. Okay. Does that make sense? Kind of, understand that? Okay. So I'll give you just a couple minutes to think about, okay, if you had 5 things, what would they be? What things would you want to potentially try? And certainly either you can write them down kind of in your notebook or you can write them down here in the chat as well to give an idea, okay? What would make 2024 a successful year? What daily habits would I need to achieve or to implement to achieve that big goal that I mentioned? Okay, give you a couple of minutes. If you have some, you're certainly welcome to share those in the chat. I'm writing up a couple that I have had in the past, just in case they serve as inspiration for people. So in the past, I've done things like, okay, try to make a post on social media. So do that on a roughly daily basis when I was first starting with social media. Earn at least $1. So when I first started Human That Works, it was okay, earn at least $1, whether that is, selling something digital or selling completing a speaking engagement, doing a little bit of coaching, whatever it happens to be, do something around that made a little bit of money, write a paragraph for my book. So when I was in the process of writing a book, trying to write every single day, exercise, had in the past of just get the heart rate up to about 150. So, okay, that's some type of aerobic thing that I'm trying to do. Fun kind of self ones of things of not to do. I try to like, okay, stop taking my phone to the bathroom. There's no reason for me to do that. I can have a break without it. Some more intention, or you might say, you know, less than X minutes on social media. Do Duolingo for 10 minutes in terms of when I was first starting with Spanish, etc. So there's small daily habits. Again, the goal is that they're small, they're manageable, they're easy, yes or no binary that you can kind of say, yes, I want to achieve, or no, I don't want to achieve. Does that make sense? Yeah. For people, anyone have any that they want to share? Again, you can drop that in the chat. And these don't have to, like, at the end of the day, if the daily habit things don't kind of resonate with you, at a minimum, it can help you to start to think about, okay, how would I make this particular goal that I have into smaller steps? How is it something that I can follow, that I can track over time? So you can kind of think about that, of what your daily habits would be. If you want, so there's a couple of apps that can help you track things like this. We actually developed an app called Perfect Day. And so you can find it on iOS and Android. I'll admit that it has not been updated in probably 3 or 4 years, but it's perfect spelled without the second E. So if you want an app to be able to track it that's specifically geared towards these habits, the idea is you put in your 5 daily habits, you track which ones you do each day, and then it'll tell you if it's a good, great, or excellent day. I'll be also perfectly honestly admit, I actually now use an app called Bearable, which allows much more tracking, and you can put in things like your mood and can connect to Apple Health, etc. And so there's a lot more connections integrated. It's an app that's updated much more frequently. And what's nice about it is that you can run different reports to kind of say, oh, hey, is there any correlation between my happiness level and, say, my caffeine intake, if that is something that you input? Or does, hey, on days that I do my daily exercise, I end up being happier at night, or that I sleep a little bit better. So it allows for a lot more kind of cross-tracking and analysis of your own life in some ways. So there are various apps that you can use for tracking, etc. But the idea is, how do you turn this big goal that you have into some type of daily action that you can at least track against? And the goal isn't necessarily to always do it every single day, but to track how often you do it and to do it more often than not, essentially. So that's the focus of the idea between these apps. And that's a big way that we can kind of step away from this concept of resolution, because it helps us to manage those mistakes that we talk about. It helps us to remove the all or nothing mentality, because we can say, okay, if I didn't do it today, I just start again tomorrow. It helps us to manage against some of the other mistakes that we make. The idea of it being too big of a resolution. Okay, it's now no longer at the end of the year, did I do this one particular thing, but also what were my daily steps towards getting there? It becomes much more specific, right? Because it's a thing that I have to be able to say yes or no to, did I do to each day? And it's a way to kind of track your progress. You're checking in each day. Are you making a little bit of progress? And then again, if you want to review at a weekly or monthly basis, it helps you a little bit more. Of course, if you're wondering what some of your habits should be, if you're looking for a habit in the fun category, which I do recommend that be one of the habits that you try to achieve, because Bianca and I were talking about some of this content yesterday, and she was sharing with me a book that she's reading by, is it Mo Gadat? I think you were mentioning. And one of the things that he was talking about is, are you using things like fun? Are you using that as an escape from responsibilities, etc., or is it becoming a way of life? And certainly at Humor That Works, our goal is, how do you make fun? How do you make humor a way of life? How do you create more enjoyable work experiences, life experience, just so that in general life is more fun? We spend far too much time at work for us not to enjoy what we do. So how do we make small changes to achieve that? Not so it's just like, hey, work is awful, and so I'm going to veg out in front of Netflix for multiple hours because it's the only way that I can kind of get through the day after a long day of working. It's like, no, how do I incorporate humor throughout the day so that it becomes a way of how I experience or how do I create something? So this is a concept from The Little Voice in Your Head, which is apparently a great book. I have not read it yet, but Bianca has spoken very nice things about it, so I look forward to adding it to the list. So we recommend that fun or something playful or enjoyable be one of those strategies or habits that you incorporate. If you're wondering, hey, what should that habit be? Well, in case you're interested, we are launching as of January 1st, what is called the Essential Course Series, launches January 1st. For those of you who have taken the Make Work Suck Less course, this is an evolution of that. So some of the content is a little bit of the same. If you did take that, reach out to me and we'll connect. But just so you know, there is a little bit similar there. But essentially, the idea of each one of these essentials courses is to help you improve in your primary persona of humor. So if you are not familiar, we have the 7 humor personas. They're the ways that we tend to express our humor in the workplace, either as an enthusiast, so finding joy and appreciation in things big and small in life, or as a curator, which is kind of taking the things that make you laugh and sharing it with other people. You have an inventor, who is someone who is good at creating humor. So writing, whether that's tweets or, puns or wordplay, comic triples, etc. You have the entertainer. That's people who are good at delivering material. Engineers are people who use humor to solve problems. So this is a big focus of what we do at Humor That Works. You have the advocate. They create the space for other people to use humor. And then you have skeptics, people who balance consideration for the things that are humorous to say, okay, is that appropriate? Is it not? Are people going to enjoy that? Is that inclusive or aggressive types of humor, etc.? So those, we think, are the 7 primary humor personas that exist. Each person tends to have one that tends to be the one that they do more naturally. Something that you maybe even think about as I was sharing those. You're like, oh, I do that with my friends, or I do that at work. Well, we have an essentials course for each one of the personas. So you could take one and say, okay, all right, I think that I am a pretty good inventor. And so, okay, here's how to be even better as an inventor. Here's how it can help you in your work. Here's how it can help you to be more creative in life. Here are the benefits. Here's the things to watch out for. So you might be really good at it, but might not be realizing what roadblocks exist or what you're kind of doing. These courses kind of help you do a deeper dive into that. So those are launching January 1st. You can pre-order now at a special price that won't exist otherwise. The other thing is that we also have the whole humor. So the intent is humor is a skill, which means it can be learned. So you can learn not just being an inventor, but you can, or not just being a curator, but you can learn how to be an entertainer or a skeptic, etc. And you can learn when each persona is appropriate. So that is the whole humorous, and there's a complete package for that. So again, you can find out more about that information at humor.me/essentials. But that's what we're really excited about kind of in terms of launching as well. So if you want that, we'll drop the link into the chat. You can check it out. But also, if you already have your fun thing that you're going to do that's unrelated to this, that's also fantastic, as long as you have something that is kind of a daily reminder or process to check in and kind of make sure that you're laughing or smiling, because we don't know what 2024 is going to bring. My guess is that it's going to bring a lot of change, potentially a tremendous amount of stress, or at least some stress, but hopefully it brings some laughter, some levity, some joy, and you can be intentional about that process. Speaking of 2024, at Humor That Works, we're going to be looking to reinvigorate the community a little bit. It's been a very busy year, lots of travel and things like that, figuring out, what our focus is. We've been putting a lot of time on these essential courses, so we haven't dedicated as much time to the community. But the focus in 2024 is we want to do these monthly happy hours. So first of all, if you have any topics you would love for us to cover, anything that you're thinking about or want to know more about, please drop that in the chat. Whether it is directly humor related or not, that helps us to kind of identify, because we're going to be picking one topic per month to do a deeper dive into, where we have some interaction around, have some content around, do some research around, and then share kind of back with all of you. So if there's anything that you want to cover, time management or stress management or management, I guess, like leadership kind of things, or just writing better, etc. Share any of those thoughts there. We're also going to be bringing back the open mic. So we'll have a virtual open mic to give people a chance to practice that entertainer skill. So if you want to, like, hey, I need to get better at virtual presentations, or I want to work on a story or whatever, we'll have that. We'll have some writing workshops as well. So it's just a way to kind of flex that creative muscle going through. I do want to pick up the Humor Talk series as well, where we bring in experts in different fields and learn a little bit more about their humor journey and what we can kind of learn from them, their experience and expertise. So we may be considering some of that, and more content. We want to create more engaging content that's out there for people to be able to use humor in specific ways. So not just humor for, hey, enjoy work, but also if you wanted to add humor to an email, exactly what do you need to know and how would you do that? Or if you're in the job search process, how would you add, a little bit of levity to do that a little bit more effectively? So that's what 2024 high level looks like. That's very vague. So Bianca and I are going to be spending some time over the next couple of weeks to refine that and put those into SMART frameworks and goals. And so we'll share that out with the newsletter so that we can hopefully have you all keep us accountable as well. But with that said, thank you all so much for joining on the 28th of December. We're closing out 2023. And so hopefully this was helpful to start thinking about 2024. I'll stay on the line if people want to chat or have any questions, but thank you all so much for coming out. And here's to an effective 2024. We'll get the date for the January event coming out soon. So hopefully we'll see you then. Thanks all for joining.